Hey guys, I wanted to make a quick review video on Scarpa's Instinct lineup. I know there's a video out there, or multiple videos out there, of the actual designer that designed these shoes for Scarpa, and he goes through the variances as well. After trying them all, I would slightly disagree with him on some of the things or the fit things that he mentioned. And so I just wanted to point that out to you guys. I totally acknowledge that there could be just quality control, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I love Scarpa shoes. Quality control differences between the shoes as they're being made. But these are the things that I've noticed after trying all of them. And I felt like it was really helpful to try them on all and then kind of be able to articulate or give that feedback that some of you guys may be looking for as well. So really quickly, I'll just go over these two because there's not much to talk about. The VS oranges and then the VSR blues, basically, I would argue that they fit, to me, exactly the same. I've worn multiple VSRs and then I've worn multiple VSs, and I would say the width, basically, of the shoe and then the heel and then the midfoot all feel exactly the same. The only difference is basically you're getting a harder, stiffer rubber with the edge on the orange, and then you get the grip too on the blue ones. So like I said, for all intents and purposes, I would argue that to me, these are literally the exact same shoes, again, with just the rubber differences. So then we go to these two other models. The teal here is known as the VS women's version. And if you look at the official release, they're saying that everything's exactly the same except the heel is slightly different, which I'll kind of point out some things that I've noticed on the heel. And then we have the newest version, which is the Instinct VSR low volume version. And so really quickly in summary, if you had to put this on a grade or basically a spectrum, I would argue I've laid it out exactly how I think they fit. Or kind of like what they feel like. To me, these all feel exactly the same. This teal one's kind of like an intermediate, meaning that it feels not quite like the low volume, but not quite like the normal VS and VSRs. So it's kind of like in between. And then the VSR low volumes, or the purple ones, to me are farthest in that spectrum of quote unquote differences. So I guess I'll just go over the low volume version. They tell you that basically there's really no difference in the toe box. The heel is more narrow, and then potentially the midfoot is basically a little bit smaller as well. For me, the heel was pretty noticeable in terms of how wide you look at the heel. And when you look at these two side by side, clearly these are quote unquote more narrow in the grand scheme of things. And I'm just looking at these as well, right? So definitely a little bit more narrow. I would say for me personally, these probably fit my feet the best out of all of them. I do have a wider toe box, and then I have a very narrow heel, which is what a lot of people have issues with. And so when you look at the bottom of it, so at this point, I would argue maybe the toe boxes are similar or very, very close or almost exactly the same. But to me, one of the differences that you're going to be seeing immediately, at least for me, was that this midfoot on the original blues and then the oranges is clearly wider. And I know I've worn through these, but here's a brand new one where it's not as pressed out as well. To me, it's definitely a little bit wider through the midfoot than the purple ones. And then once again, the heel is quite a bit smaller. So one of the claims or the discussion points is that in theory, the tension or the stiffness of this shoe should feel exactly the same as this orange. I personally would disagree with that. I feel like the purple is noticeably softer than the orange and then the blue ones, and then to a certain extent the teal ones as well. And so again, you can play around with the flexibility and all these other things that you want. It just feels stiffer, like as you're bending through it. And it could be because there's more material in this midfoot, I don't know. But to me, it was very, very noticeable. And then the other way of describing this too is that when I did the pinch test, basically if you just grab the shoe and you pinch it on the side, just feeling the tension as I pinch through this and how much it flexes or how soft it is laterally like that. When you look at any of the other ones, there's definitely more resistance that forces me to be able to pinch through that. So again, it's very noticeable in person. I would even argue the teal one has more tension in that lateral pinch test. Well, this one just feels like very, very squishy in the grand scheme of things. And so that to me is probably the biggest, I don't want to say negative, but noticing the difference between the two. And for me, I wanted basically an orange or blue shoe with just a more narrow heel. And so I do a lot of gym climbing for the most part. I felt like the purple was really nice in terms of slabby stuff because it was soft and you could smear really well. But if you were looking at small footholds and you're pressing a lot of your weight onto it, for me, it was very noticeable that the toe and the shoe itself would deform more on those small, footholds. So like edging, right? And so I would do climbs back to back and do specific moves. And anytime I pressed with this orange shoe or the blue shoe, I felt like you could press and that shoe wouldn't deform as much. So it felt like you were on a harder, more stable platform. Do you lose some sensitivity with this quote unquote stiffer shoe? For sure, 100%. The sensitivity on the purple one was definitely quote unquote nicer or noticeably nicer. But for me, I don't feel like they're literally same replicas of each other, but with a different quote unquote narrower heel. And I think that's a huge emphasis for me in the grand scheme of things. I was really hoping it would be the same exact shoe with just a different heel. But to me, in my opinion, after wearing them multiple times, they definitely are not. And so with that in mind, where does the teal one come into play? I mentioned it was kind of like an in-between one. They mentioned that the heel is supposed to be quote unquote shallower than the other shoes, and maybe I remember that wrong, but to me the heel is definitely taller on this teal one, and you can see the edge here and the edge of the orange one down here. And if you guys want to look at the brand new one, same concept. The top of that heel is noticeably taller or higher than quote unquote the orange and the blues. Same with the purple one. If you look at the heel, slightly higher as well. To me, the heel on this teal one feels slightly more narrow as well, but they're probably pretty close, if not exactly the same. Like we're splitting hairs at this point, right? But that's why I put it kind of like, again, the ranking of the order is that these are quote unquote heel wise a little bit wider. This to me maybe is in between the blue and the orange and the purple, and then the purple one's definitely the most narrow out of them all. And then same concept, the width of that midfoot. And both of these are relatively brand new. I would argue the width of this, or the midfoot for the teal, feels just a little bit more narrow than the quote unquote orange ones. I know they look very, very similar, but once they've been worn in, you can kind of see, again, the bigger difference as I've worn in the shoe. Obviously, it's going to collapse a little bit. In terms of the tension, once again, just a little bit less stiff or very, very close. So to me, like, if I had to grade these on a scale, let's say this is a 1 and this is a 10 in terms of differences, this would probably be like a 3, right? Where it's pretty close to this, the blue and the orange, but just some minor differences between the blue and the orange in this one. And so that was the biggest thing. Like I said, just a random quick video because I really wanted to point out for a lot of people, including myself, I was like, hey, I think this is the same shoe, or that's basically what they're telling us. They're the same shoe except for the heel difference. And to me, it definitely is not the same shoe. Once again, this is a little bit softer. It does have that more narrow heel. This one feels like the orange one with a higher heel and maybe a slightly more narrow midfoot all around. And then these are the original ones with a very big toe box, a very big midfoot, and then a very big heel as well. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. It took me, again, a lot of different shoes and trial and error to figure this out. So just trying to help some people out. Good luck.